We're calling this meeting to order. Meeting called to order at 6:03 p.m. Due to the declaration of emergency, this meeting is being held pursuant to AB 361, approved by Governor of California on September 16, 2021. And some or all of the City Council members may participate in this meeting by teleconference. Pursuant to the Imperial County Public Health Department guidelines, City Council meetings are now open to the public for attendance at 100% capacity of council chambers. Public participation will continue to be available in the following ways. Members of the public are encouraged to watch the meeting via live stream at http://communityspectrum.org/live at 6 p.m. or via Calexico City Hall Facebook page at facebook.com/City of Calexico CA. We will now, Ms. Garcia, roll call.
Mayor Moreno is absent tonight. Mayor Potem Porena.
I believe so. Here, present.
Councilmember Romo.
Here.
Councilmember Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Arreola Fernandez. Here. We have a quorum, sir.
Okay. We will rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Favila, could you lead us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Can we all please stand and move your head covers? Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's okay.
We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Thank you.
So moved.
Are we going to move the items?
There was a request by the public to move items, just put the traffic mitigation plan.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as is, with moving item 2 to item 1 and item 1 to item 2.
The order of the items. Second.
Second? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Here's roll call. No, because it's.
Do we need a roll call vote? No? Aye.
That-
Okay. Motion passes 4-0. We'll start with item number 1, which is approve the Calexico Police Department to implement traffic mitigation plan for 2nd Street. Mr. Serrano?
Yes. Good evening, everyone. We're going to be talking about the intersection of Second Street and Imperial Avenue. No, 2nd Street and Cesar Chavez Boulevard. In the recent years, since the port of entry has moved over to adjacent to the Cesar Chavez intersection, and we've had a lot of issues at that intersection. And it has created a whole bunch of traffic problems throughout the whole city at different times, whether it be in the morning or evening hours. And due to that, we're trying to make changes to the traffic patterns and traffic directions so we could better control the traffic, since we do have a limited amount of traffic controllers at our disposal for controlling the traffic on the whole entire city, whether it be in Imperial Avenue or Cesar Chavez. And recently, we've seen a spike on traffic controllers being assaulted with vehicles or even struck with vehicles. So we had to develop a plan in order for us to solve that issue without, with the resources that we have on hand right now. If we would have had more personnel, then we would have had assigned more personnel to that area in order for us to be able to enforce the law and be able to have people obey the law as intended to do. So we developed a plan. Well, I developed a plan based on my.
Mr. Serrano, I'm sorry to pause you. We skipped over public comments in general. I don't have any requests for communications in general, but I do have to read the statement. No, I'm sorry. Public comments and public appearances. This is time for the public to address the City Council on the special agenda items only. The mayor will recognize you to come to the microphone. Please state your name and place of residence for the record. While members of the public are encouraged to participate, it is unlawful to disturb or delay the City Council meeting with personal or slanderous remarks. City Council is prohibited by state law from taking action or discussing items not included on the printed agenda. Please direct your questions and comments to the City Council. I do have one request for communication by Mr. Rison. If you could just allow me to let Mr. Serrano finish. Adelante.
Okay.
Apologies.
Okay.
Sí. Go ahead, go ahead.
So during this time, we've seen Second Street and Cesar Chavez is always congested due to the traffic. Again, you know, the traffic gets delayed. We can't get that traffic into Mexico quick enough because of the construction of the port of entry, the large number of vehicles on the street, people not obeying the traffic laws, even when traffic controllers are there, causing gridlock. So the whole purpose of us putting traffic controllers in all our streets is to facilitate the southbound flow of traffic. That is the main reason why we have traffic controllers on our streets, because we got to facilitate that traffic into Mexico, or else it's going to cause a lot of other issues for the community. So in retrospect, one of the reasons why we decided to close off eastbound traffic and then southbound off Second Street coming from the West Second Street off of Grand Plaza is because vehicles on that road back up on that lane all the way up to the Grand Plaza. And vehicles coming south that don't want to wait in line and don't want to wait their turn to get into the line, they take the Grand Plaza exit and follow that road, get into Second Street, or they make a U-turn and cut into the line by forcing themselves into the line, or what they do is they continue eastbound, and on that eastbound lane that continues eastbound, they quickly make a right turn where most of our traffic controls are getting assaulted or hit by vehicles because that lane is for eastbound traffic only. However, drivers that do not obey the law, they want to cut and they don't want to wait in line, they make that quick right turn, and we have traffic controllers jumping out of the way just so they could avoid getting struck. Another issue that we have is also on that southbound Cesar Chavez going to the Grand Plazas. They come out and make a real quick U-turn right in front, right just west of the intersection, and get into that eastbound lane and then cut across. So we've had a lot of issues with that, a lot of complaints about people making U-turns, people merging into traffic when they're not supposed to. And so we kind of develop a plan in order for us to solve that issue, have that continuous traffic southbound, on whether it's coming off of Imperial Avenue or if it's coming out of Cesar Chavez. So what we chose to do is we close the eastbound traffic to make that right turn into Mexico, and also the eastbound traffic to go into continue eastbound on Second Street. And you might think, well, how did this plan came up? Well, I've had 28 years of dealing with this traffic. I have a bachelor's degree on criminal justice. I have a master's degree on law enforcement executive leadership. So in order for us to figure this out, we had to be placed in the leadership position to make those tough decisions. I understand that commerce is a big part of the city. However, if the traffic does not flow into Mexico, the businesses around that area of the traffic is not going to get businesses because they're not going to go and shop and deal and battle with the traffic on Imperial Avenue or on Cesar Chavez. And then if we do that, continue that traffic eastbound off Second Street coming from Grand Plaza, now the people that want to shop into Grand Plaza is also going to have to fight the traffic to get back to their destination. So for the past 28 years, I've dealt with this traffic. We've implemented different traffic plans, different traffic signage, different traffic flow.
May the record reflect Mr. Moreno has come in at 6:13 p.m. Thank you.
Throughout the years, and we've kept everything that works. So far, this plan was implemented in the middle of October. And since then, we have not had any issues of vehicles cutting a line on using Second Street, vehicles making that U-turn. Traffic controls are not out there and getting hit by cars at that intersection. The traffic, it appears that it's moving a lot faster because if you close that eastbound traffic lane, then you have continuous flow, whether it be southbound through Cesar Chavez or whether it be southbound through Imperial Avenue. You have continuous flow and there is no stop of southbound flow. So throughout these years, we've developed and seen these traffic patterns and being able to fix this issue with only the resources that we have now. If we want to truly be able to fix this issue, we are going to have to put funding behind it, whether it be police officers and traffic controllers, for people to be out there and enforcing the law and people be obeying the law. Right now, with the staffing that I have in my patrol teams right now, I only have 3 officers and a supervisor, and that's for the whole city. I cannot dedicate a officer just to deal with the traffic on Imperial Avenue. And that's why we're creating all these plans in order for us to fix this problem, or at least mitigate the problem when it appears. I understand that, it might be inconvenient for some businesses, but somebody has to make the hard decision and be able to implement these plans and figure out what can be done and what plans work and what plans don't work. So based on that, I made a decision to go ahead and take this plan forward. And it was implemented. It seems like it's working. So unless we want to change it, then I'm definitely going to be requesting funding for more officers and traffic controllers to deal with the whole entire traffic plan.
So the bottom line is, in order for you to be able to open going eastbound or going into Mexico from Grand Plaza, is that you need the staffing.
Yes, I need the staffing for traffic
Okay, so
controllers.
that's the bottom line.
No, well, let me explain to you first. I need staffing for traffic controllers. I need staffing for officers that are going to be for people to comply with the law. Because if you don't have immediate and quick enforcement, people are still going to be doing the same thing. Their whole purpose is to get into Mexico as quickly as possible.
Ms. Fernandez, we do have one person that would like to speak on the item. Let's get through the public communication, then we'll get back to discussion. Mr. Reisen, does this conclude the presentation? We'll come back for questions
Yes.
and discussion. Yes? Okay, excellent. Mr. Reisen?
Morris Reisen, Calexico. I have 50 years experience in Calexico downtown. He only has 28 years. Let me tell you what's going on. He's closing the outlets. They're going to go broke because people that go to the outlets to shop and they have to leave and go back to Mexico, they have to go by Walmart and get in line. You can't close that. It's impossible. And that's what he's doing. And another thing is that he's got enough people out there that can work. He can use the police because I think they have Stone Garden. Don't you have Stone Garden funds?
Yes, we do, but however, that grant is through the federal government, and it's an enforcement grant to help.
No, you can, not for transit. You can use it for police. You
Mr.
can have the police out
Mr.
there.
Reisen, please communicate yourself to the city council. We'll have discussion in a moment.
So as I was saying, that Stone Garden grant is for enforcement.
Mr. Serrano, he is making his public comment.
Okay. Also, when I want to go to the bank, I'm on the oil, and I want to go to the bank. They're diverting me all the way to Grant Street. From Grant Street, I have to go to Emerson, turn right on Emerson, go all the way to 5th Street because there's only one police traffic control that takes you crossing Imperial Avenue. From 2nd Street all the way to 98, there's only one. It's tough. That's why we have congested. And then when I go back and I go on Grant Street, you divert me to the right. You can't go across Imperial Avenue straight. No, excuse me, Cesar Chavez. You divert me to the right, and I can't get back to the store. Well, what you have going there is not right. It's not right. But here, I understand that there's the Measure D, Ms. Colio, the Measure D funds. That's for the street. I believe you can use that for traffic control. Because one time we gave $300,000 to the police department when Shallow was there. Try looking in on that. I think you can use it. Campos, you remember that?
I don't recall specifically, but we can follow up.
Okay,
Yeah.
you can get the money from Measure D money.
Probably.
That's the gas money. You cannot block the streets. You gotta get traffic control. You gotta get police, you gotta work it. Don't leave it the way it is, because Grand Plaza's gonna go broke, and those sales tax revenue pay your wages. So you have to open it up. People are gonna get sick of it, and they're not gonna go to Grand Plaza, they're gonna go to the mall. We're gonna lose that tax revenue. Okay, so we have to work on this. Please, don't let them keep it the way it is. You can't keep it like that. Find something, find a solution. That's my comment. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Risa. Thank you, Mr. Risa.
No questions? No?
We'll bring this discussion back to council. If we can, it sounds like fellow council people have some comments, discussions, and questions, so we'll go one by one. Mr. Garcia?
Just going back, and that was going to be my question also, and more than question also, trying to find a plan. And I appreciate, your expertise, Mr. Serrano, but also we need to make sure that we're looking at everybody, from businesses to, revenue also. I think, we're losing on the opportunity, and now with the holidays coming too, I see and I understand your position, and I see how, traffic gets also, but, on the financial, sense, we stand to lose a lot of revenue, or potential revenue. So if we can just find a way to, work on this, look at different options, look at different funding. And then, from what I've seen too, even when you go on that local lane, still, even if there is no traffic, still people do that U-turn right there and then. So it goes beyond just that high, the hours with, high traffic. It's just, if there's no physical barrier, I guess blocking from that U-turn, people are still going to do that to get back into either going east on 2nd Street. So I've seen it. Because if not, you either have to go into the shopping center and then come around, or you have to go all the way to Grand Plaza and go into Grand Plaza and come back. So somehow, we need to find a solution to block for safety, and not just for high peak, traffic hours, but just safety overall. I know it's really difficult, but if we can just look at different options and find a solution. So I know we don't have those solutions right now, but let's get this together and find ways. So I think, all of us need to be looking at this, need to be looking at the public also, and at the businesses. So let's work more on this, and I trust your expertise. I trust, also the concerns of the citizens. So, safety, it's a priority, but also let's look at the potential revenue that we stand to lose.
Okay, thanks. Ms. Fernandez?
Oh, yeah. Like I was saying, I guess what we need is more traffic control, as I understand it. But at this point, what I've noticed, that when you have the 3 arteries open, you didn't have all the backup all the way to the cemetery. What's happening right now, since they're not able to go into Mexico from coming east, from 2nd Street, the lines are getting, they're really extended. You have them all the way to the cemetery, and that's what we have been witnessing. And that's what the people, the citizens are so upset about. And I'm sure everybody gets calls when that is happening. So, I don't know, like you said, you're working on it, and I think we as a council has to find a solution for this. That's all I'm saying.
Ms. Romo?
I would like to hear what is your response, Mr. Serrano and Mr. Collins, please.
On which comment? There was 3 comments.
Mr. Royce.
It's okay, so we'll talk to, about Mr. Risen's comment. Stone Garden. So Stone Garden is a law enforcement, it's an enforcement grant given to us by the federal government through the sheriff's office to enforce the law. Not necessarily for traffic, and we have to have some nexus to border crime. So if we use it to deal with the traffic on 2nd Street, that's definitely not going to be to what the grant is supposed to be doing. And in that case, back in 2013, 2014, that was one of the reasons why we had a lot of officers got in trouble and even fired, because they were not doing what the grant was doing. So now, the other one is about closing the streets and looking at the revenue. I had time. I asked the officers, and these are the people that actually deal with the traffic, not just live in and around the traffic, that have to deal with all the motorists every single day that the traffic backs up. So we had to weigh financial status of the city and the police department, the safety of each traffic controller on the street, the Grand Plaza revenue that we expect to have during the holiday seasons or whenever that time comes. And we've tried to figure out how can we fix this issue or we fix this problem without affecting any of those three. And nobody was able to come up with any ideas. This problem has been going on for years and years. And if we don't take a stand and make a decision in order for us to see if it works and give it time to see if it works and educate our motorists or our community that that's not what they're supposed to be doing, how are we ever going to solve the problem? I understand revenue, yes, I understand. But I think safety comes over any revenue at all. And then regarding the lines, before Cesar Chavez was even open, we had lines all the way to the cemetery. So this is not a problem that we created just because we closed a single lane. We had that lane open, and we had traffic all the way to Dogwood on 98 and the cemetery and back up at the Grand Plaza. This way, we increase the flow of traffic southbound into Mexico using 2 lanes, and we educate our community that if they want to go to Mexico, these are the lanes that they got to take. They don't have no other option because Grand Plaza, the canal's closed. If the canal was open, we still would have had to have this problem, and we would have had to deal with the problem by adding traffic controllers and police officers to enforce the law there. So, having that said, these issues, if we want to re-educate the community, re-educate the problem, the population, we have to do strict enforcement, which I don't have personnel to do. The traffic controllers are there to flow the traffic into Mexico, not to any of the businesses, because the people that aren't in line, their whole purpose is to go to Mexico. They've most likely done all their shopping they've done all day already. And they're not going to get out of line to go shop at one of the stores and then expect to get back in line in the same place, where people are waiting there for 30 minutes to an hour, waiting in line, and then just because they decided to go shop at a store, they're going to be able to get in front of the line. That was one of the issues that we had when Huerta was open at 2nd and Imperial, and also Baja Duty Free. There we had traffic backed up all the way on Emerson because they would go in, buy a little bit amount of money of items, and then so they could cut in front of the line. So having all that said, putting all that into perspective, the decision was made to go ahead and close those 2 lanes to, one, expedite the flow of traffic into Mexico, and alleviate those traffic issues at that part of town, which I don't have personnel to enforce the law.
Thank you, Mr. Serrano. I do have another request for communication for items 1 and 2 from Mr. Alex Perroni. Let me just ask Mr. Mayor if he has any thoughts. No, unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes per person to speak on every meeting. Mr. Perroni, would you like to speak now or after Mr. Mayor?
Excuse me?
Would you like to speak now or after Mr. Moreno's comments?
We'll wait for the mayor's
Mayor? Mr. Moreno, do you have any thoughts? Okay, seeing none.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, City Manager, and Mr. Campos, Gabby, nice to see you guys. You're talking, item number 1 is,
Item number 2.
we're on number 2.
Yes.
Okay. Is this where
Traffic.
the promenade, the closing of the downtown.
This is
No.
regarding I'm going to pause the time. This item is about police officers.
Change the items.
The Second Street, the plan to mitigate Second Street traffic into Cesar Chavez.
Okay. I thought it was a different item. So we're also talking about financing today or the budget?
Yes,
Okay, is that item on?
Item one.
yes, that is now item number 2. That
In
is
few
the next one.
minutes.
Okay, can I comment on that, or do I wait till that item is on?
Wait until that item for the finances. Right now, we're on traffic.
Okay, good. Now, I'll make some comments as I cross almost daily to Mexicali, back and forth. And I agree with you to a certain point, Mr. Serrano, because, you know, you have to consider all that traffic going back to Mexico. But again, we need to consider our local people, our local businesses. So I guess we find ways to address it, not only say, no, we can't use funds. I've been involved in many grants, and sometimes you can use a little magic and make those funds available. We're not saying use the whole wine garden grant, use some of the monies. And as we talked, it's to help the federal government provides this grant. All the people going back to Mexico or coming in, it's a federal issue because they're crossing the border. So, and you talk about safety. Controlling the traffic also is a safety matter. So I agree with you, but I also agree with our local merchants. So we have to find a way where we can keep our city safe and also our pocketbooks of our business people safe. So, and all I hear all the time is we can't because I don't have staff. City council, I put that in your hands. Why don't they have staff? Help them with the staff. And I've heard that for many years. And I think it's time we start finding where to get those funds. And they have the proper funding for staff. So now I heard that they were also commenting on the promenade. That's no? Okay. So that's my only comment. So I agree, but not completely. We have to find the both sides. And I think you have a lot of education in law enforcement. I think we apply it on how we work our traffic situation. Thank you, City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Peroni. I'll just go ahead and ask some questions before we entertain a motion. There were some funds that were mentioned by the public. Obviously, Stone Garden has nothing to do with traffic control. It has everything to do with cross-border crimes, so that fund would not apply. Measure D does have a healthy balance, but we also have a lot of road needs in the city of Calexico. So to take away from Measure D for traffic control, it could possibly be done, but you would also be taking away from bridges, from roads that are in deep need of repair here in the city of Calexico, as we do know. And when we're talking about how much more staff, obviously this is where I come to you with the question. Ever since Calexico East was closed in 2020, we've had more traffic control cost. What were we seeing before 2020? What are we seeing now in terms of traffic control cost with this plan as it is right now?
So back before the pandemic and then during the time, the pandemic when the East Port of Entry was closed, we had up to 18 traffic controllers to deal with the traffic issue. Right now, we're at 5, possibly 6, 100 employees plus 2 part-time employees and then 1 full-time employee. So the ratio of officers or traffic control officers to now than before is about half. And in order for us to be able to man everything that we have on the street, whether it be 2nd Street and Imperial, 5th and Imperial, 7th and Imperial, Cesar Chavez, Grant and Imperial, SR 111 and 98, Cesar Chavez and 2nd Street, Grant Street and and Cesar Chavez is 98, and at times all the way up to Cole Road, we would have to have approximately 18 traffic controllers. Before pandemic and during pandemic, our traffic issues with vehicle traffic was still going on. People were still driving on the shoulders. People were still driving on Second Street, making that U-turn. We still had those issues. However, we, as a police department, were not dealing with those traffic because we were dealing with bigger crimes, your robberies, your burglaries, and all those crimes that are occurring during the day, and we were responding to those calls. So that section of town was not given the proper attention that was needed. So that was pre-pandemic and during pandemic. In order for us to solve some of those issues, we need to take real hard actions and be able to change the behavior of the people.
My question was, how much do we spend on traffic control?
So
How much has it gone up in terms of money?
technically, last year on temporary services, we had 350,000, and this year we only had 250. So there hasn't been an increase in funding. There's actually been a decrease in funding. So that does not allow us to hire the adequate number of traffic controllers to mitigate any of those issues that occur at the intersections for the traffic control. Now, everything east, west, and Imperial Avenue, the traffic, we have to have officers to mitigate that. The traffic on Highway 111 north of 98, vehicles driving on the shoulders, we need to have officers to mitigate with that because they have the enforcement powers to change the behavior of the motorist and not allow them to do that. On Second Street, once again, you need enforcement and you don't need traffic control at the intersection because the intersections are taken care of with the traffic controllers, but outside of the intersections is where we need police officers to actually enforce the law.
Okay.
Okay. I'll go ahead
Lem-
and entertain a motion.
Can I have just one more question?
Sure.
111, right? Is that a state highway or that is overseen by the local PD, by us?
So, Highway 111 from Second Street all the way to Jasper Road
Okay.
well, the entire Highway 111 is a state highway. However, from Second Street to Jasper Road, since it is in our city, we have jurisdiction. It's not like the Interstate 8, like in El Centro, that CHP has jurisdiction on Interstate 8. And El Centro Police Department also has jurisdiction on that street, but they're the primary agency that has jurisdiction in CHP on Interstate 8, just like we have primary jurisdiction on both Highway 98 and State Route 111 at our cities, between our city limits.
And the reason why I'm asking is because of that enforcement that, driving on the shoulder of 111 between Cole Road and all the way to 98. That happens a lot. And I know I've seen even some patrol units from Imperial at one point, also coming all the way to Jasper, so, I mean, they come really close to our city for enforcement because I've seen that they pull, people over. So just on the enforcement, maybe some help, maybe reaching out. So I that's an option, or if that could be an option that can be explored. I don't know what is it that needs to be done, but right now we need that for safety purposes, right? So maybe looking at that, if that's, again, you're the expert on that, I'm not gonna question that, but if you can look at, partnering, just reaching out. I see that also the A does patrol, of our city at times. Again, reaching out to other agencies, especially right now during the holidays, during the high traffic season. Maybe looking into that, at least for now, while we find a way to, maybe find some resources. But that should be also on the table, I think.
I think Mr. Mayor wanted to say something. Señor Moreno? Can you hear us?
Can you tell him closer to the mute? I think
that
he
one?
hears you closer to the computer, but he cannot hear us.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you, Mayor.
You asked me a question?
Did you have any thoughts on the matter before we proceed with the motion?
I can't hear Ureña. Maybe you can translate for me.
Mayor Moreno, Mayor Pro Tem Ureña is asking if you have any comments on the matter.
The girl that was before Ureña heard well. Very loud here. Kind of far away. Can we put it back in?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you better. Okay. Yes, I do. We play a big role there in ICTC, and now that the study's over here, we got to make sure that at 98 they continue to, they said last time that we're going to work on the east side. That'll help to mitigate some of the traffic congestion there.
Okay,
That's all I have.
thank you. Are there any motions on the floor? Motion?
I have a motion to approve.
There's a motion to approve. I will second that motion. Ms. Garcia, could you call roll call?
Mayor Pro Tem Ureña,
Yes?
Councilmember Romo,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Arreola Fernandez, Mayor Moreno.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Motion passes 5-0. Moving on to the first quarter budget report. Item number 2, first quarter budget status report, proposed budget amendment resolutions, and findings related to funding certain public improvements by Ms. Golia.
We're going to do, Ms. Fonseca is going to do the introduction, and I will continue with the presentation in both English and Spanish. Okay?
Muy bien. Entonces, la sección bilingüe viene después de la señora Fonseca.
Yes,
Sí.
in a sense, yes.
Okay. Adelante.
Angela, can you put the presentation, please? Good evening, Mayor and council members and members in the audience. Tonight, Ms. Golio and myself are going to be presenting the first quarter budget report. And as she mentioned, it will be a two-part item. I'll be presenting the introduction and how we look. And she'll be presenting the recommendations and doing it bilingual as well. Today's objectives and our item is to preview you on the 21-22 unaudited year-end general fund actuals, the year-end process. We'll be updating you with our first quarter general fund projections and with opportunities to invest in city needs. We will also be proposing a resolution to amend 21-22 budget and also 22-23. And this is to meet the requirements we need to be in compliance with our audit and state regulations. And lastly, we will be looking ahead for the 6-month calendar that the finance will be working on with year-end, this current budget, and also working for the future budget. On this graph, you may see how the general fund For the first quarter, we've expended 26% of the budget, which we are in track. It's 1% a little higher, and this was because of the one-time accrual payouts that we had to do for employees that have left the city. And also, the ones in orange, you may see, those are other program expenditures outside of the general fund, and these are very dependent, and they're long-term projects. But you can see that's why they haven't been expended as much for 2022-23. Like I said, the general fund is on track to end the 21-22 year with a fund balance of 2.9 million, or a 60-day of annual expenditures. With proposed budget adjustments, annual revenues exceeded annual expenditures by $818,000. As you may see on the graphs here, it shows how our revenues are a little bit higher than our expenditures, and that we've that by doing the monitoring controls that we've been doing with our expenditures, this has kept us on track. And this is also, I take this opportunity to thank the departments, each department head, because I know that they have very short fundings in each department, and they've done all that they can to help us with the general fund, to keep it in a healthy way. And like I mentioned, our annual revenue exceeded by $818,000, moving us from a 45-day reserve to a 60-day reserve, which this helps us be on track with the state auditing that they have. One of the recommendations that they've asked us. And where it says proposed year-end transfers, there's other funds that Ms. Scolia will be giving her recommendations as what we need to do for our reserves. We are very happy to say that we will be having 2 different types of reserves that we'll be putting in with our resolution. And one of them, like I mentioned, we had a 1% increase in our general fund expense due to unfunded liability. And with this reserve that Ms. Scolia will be presenting, that will help us alleviate once employees try to leave. After the proposed transfers, the net 21-22 revenue expenditures operating results are $818,000 are added to the general fund reserve. Together, the combined general and Measure H fund balance reserves have improved to 2.9 and reach an important industry benchmark established by the Government Finance Officers Association to equal to 2-month 60-day operation. This 60-day revenue reserve is also projected to provide the necessary cash balance needed to cover the annual general fund working capital cash flows requirements for the July to November gap until the county's distribution of property taxes in December without internal borrowing. So this 60-day cap will help us be able to sustain ourselves with having to do interfund borrowings from other funds. Moving to fiscal year 2022-23 general fund update. With the 21-22 actual results now available, the general fund revenue projections for the current fiscal year have been updated based upon the prior year actual records and trends. In total, the revenue projection has increased by $219,000. Of this amount, $162,000 is being proposed for new expenditures within 3 departments of our city and general fund. And this will also leave some portion for to maintain the 60-day fund balance on the general fund. The 3 departments that we are proposing are parks, making 4 part-timers to full-time, the police chief salary adjustments, and to planning planning and building for the application processing in cannabis. And like I mentioned, Ms. Golio will be providing more detail on these proposals. And this is the financial calendar for the next 6 months that the finance department will be working. As you may see, we are 1 month behind from the last calendar that I had presented to you back in June. But the staff and myself are very encouraged, and we want to continue with this process. And hopefully, in 21-20, for the fiscal year 21-22, we are targeting to have our end closed by November, between November and January, and having an audit field work, having them come over in February. And our target is to publish and audit financial statements in March, and closing that, we would be opening the kickoff for the new budget year development. With that said, I now leave to Ms. Golio to do the rest of the presentation.
Good afternoon. I'm Esperanza Colio, and I want to try to make a presentation in English and in Spanish. So I will be back and forth trying to explain the situation that we're currently in.
Ms. Golio, your microphone.
I have to very close, so I'm not going to move it. Like I mentioned before, I'm going to try to make the presentation in English and Spanish. So for every slide, I'm going to try to do the English version and then the Spanish version. Next slide, please. So let's begin with the fire station number 1 construction. This project was originally had funding for $6 million, $6,220,000. The project incurred an expenses close to $1 million in designing and construction managing, which leaves the project unfunded without the funds, complete funds, to contract for construction. What I'm trying to say is when they came in June 3rd, 2020, the city didn't have enough funds to contract the construction project. And so that automatically put the city behind budget. There was a comment, we went back to the recording, in which the city council were told that $1 million or more was approved by the state of California to use CDBG funds for the construction of the project. And with that, the city council went ahead and approved the project with that understanding. But the state, and I confirmed with the state never approved that $1 million. So the city contracted a contract with no funds enough to do it. So what happened now, the project is a total cost of $8.292 million. The construction was $5.7 million. And so right now we're struggling to complete this project because we don't have the funds available, and they are pending change orders. They will bring to the city council, and the fire chief is going to come with the detail of all the change orders. And my findings, they are change orders that they never came through the city council for approval, and they were paid. And so I went back and forth. It has been a long weekend for me to try to figure out this project, and those are my findings. And we will present to you in detail with dates and everything, how everything happened. In addition to that, the original engineering cost was going to be $500,000, and they added construction management and other activities, and it ended up being $1 million. So you almost double the contract for that consultant. The same consultant that prepared the designs is the same consultant that is doing the construction management, which is actually something that I will never do. You always have to have check and balances and have one contractor, one engineer to do the designs and the other engineer to do the construction management. Lo que acabo de explicar es lo siguiente. En el 2020, el proyecto de la construcción de la estación de bomberos número 1 se trajo al concilio para que se aprobara un contrato de $5.7 millones para construcción. Sin embargo, el concilio recibió información de que el Estado les había aprobado más de $1 millón para construir program income, lo que le llaman Community Development Background, que es $1 millón en program income. Program income es el dinero que se recibe como pagos de los préstamos que se dan a las familias. Y en ese momento, el concilio, basado en la información que les fue proveído en ese momento, el concilio decidió aprobar el contrato, pero desgraciadamente esa aprobación no estaba hecha. Nunca se aprobó ese dinero adicional. En este momento, el proyecto tiene un costo total de $8.292.000. Y el presupuesto de lo que le llaman el Measure H, la medida H, solo tenía $6.220.000. Utilizaron $200.000 del ARPA en mayo del 2022. Y ahorita, para poder nosotros completar ese proyecto, necesitamos $1.872.000. One thing that I forgot to mention in the English version is that the Measure H funds for this project is only $6.2 million. ARPA funds were used in May 2020 for $200,000. So in order for us to be able to approve this project and complete this project, we need $1.872 million. That's how short the project is. Otra de las cosas que mencionaba al concilio ahorita en la versión de inglés es de que alguno de los problemas que este proyecto tiene es de que hay cambios durante el proyecto que no fueron aprobados por el concilio, pero fueron pagados. También hemos identificado problemas con contratos que se hicieron al principio con el ingeniero que diseñó el proyecto, y el contrato, que originalmente era alrededor de $500,000, se convirtió en un proyecto de $1 millón porque le dieron la responsabilidad de inspeccionar la construcción, lo que no es algo muy común que se deba de hacer, tener a un ingeniero que diseña y el mismo ingeniero inspeccionar el proyecto. Normalmente son 2 ingenieros, porque es lo que le llamamos nosotros check and balances, que es estar al tanto de que dos ingenieros tengan una opinión acerca del proyecto. Eso previene los cambios adicionales en los proyectos. Entonces, eso se los voy a dejar ahorita aquí pendientes. Vamos a seguir hablando de otros problemas que estamos teniendo en la ciudad. Pero ahorita nomás mantengan en su mente que en este momento necesitamos $1.872 millones para poder completar este proyecto. If this project does not get complete, we're running into the possibility to be sued by the contractor. Number one, this project was originally scheduled for 365 days and now we're at 2 years. Uno de los problemas que tenemos si no aprobamos este contrato es de que este proyecto, si no se aprueba y no buscamos la solución para completarlo, el contratista nos puede demandar, porque este contrato originalmente era por 365 días y estamos a 2 años de que se empezó el proyecto. Next slide, please. Ahora bien, otro de los problemas que tenemos en la ciudad son todos estos proyectos que ustedes ven aquí. Estos proyectos, estos edificios que necesitan reparaciones, han sido reparaciones que por falta de mantenimiento durante los años, algunos, ahora tienen problemas más grandes. La biblioteca, por ejemplo, tenía un problema de mojo, pero ahora ya se eliminó y ahora hay que reparar los sanitarios y eso cuesta alrededor de $400,000. Es uno de los ejemplos. Debido a la lluvia que tuvimos, a la tormenta que tuvimos un daño completo en 7 edificios. Otros edificios no se han mantenido y tienen problemas de la estación de bomberos número 2. La tuvimos que cerrar debido a que tenía problemas con el drenaje y también con mojo.
¿Estos 50,000 son de la 1 o de la 2?
Este es de la 2. No, este es de la 1. Es del Old Courthouse donde están ahorita los bomberos porque no están ni en la estación número 1 ni en la estación número 2. Están en el edificio viejo, que es el antiguo, pero que también se está goteando. Ahora con las lluvias también se goteó.
Pero aquí no aparece la número 2.
No, aquí no aparece el número 2 porque el número 2 va separado y lo vamos a encontrar al final de la presentación. Ahora bien, existen otros gastos que tenemos que afrontar, como son las reparaciones en los sanitarios para el agua caliente que tenemos. Como ustedes saben, nos vinieron a inspeccionar las facilidades para saber si tenían agua caliente los baños, los sanitarios, para lavarse las manos o la cocina, y pues tenemos que cumplir con la regla, con el Código de California. Ahora bien, también tenemos problemas de aires acondicionados, y esto tengo un inventario de aproximadamente 24 unidades que se tienen que reemplazar. De hecho, una de las oficinas de aquí del edificio no está funcionando. El edificio del centro comunitario dejó de funcionar hace 2 semanas, más o menos, totalmente. La biblioteca del Carnegie está, 3 unidades de las 5, 4 unidades de las 5 no están en servicio y aparte tienen problema de drenaje. Son diferentes situaciones, y para poder arreglar todas estas cosas necesitamos $1,114,000. This is a list of buildings that belongs to the city. They have different issues, from mold, from air conditioner, from carpet, from damages due to the rain, and technology that we need. As you can see, we cannot even have a Zoom meeting in this building that is on the screen. And it's very difficult not having the technology. So in order for us to be able to fix those items, we need $1,114,000. So next slide, please. So I'm going to show you some of the photos so you can see more or less what the issues that we have. You can see some of the roof on the water distribution facility and the airport. Next slide. This is the top part, is the restrooms once the mold was mitigated. And on the bottom part, these are the conditions of the carpet, which in my opinion is a huge liability for us because staff is working on a daily basis, and if one of them fall, that's a liability for the city. So we need to replace those carpets. Next slide. Those are also part of the roof of the police department, the city hall chamber. Actually, the city hall chamber, we need to remove those panels that you have on the side because apparently we had termite. And some of the other buildings. Parte de las fotografías que ustedes han visto representan algunos de los edificios que tienen problemas, desde alfombrado, desde los techos que están dañados debido a las lluvias, algunos techos que ya que han estado bastante viejos y no se han mantenido, los baños que necesitan repararse. Están cerrados los baños de la biblioteca está abierta, pero están cerrados los sanitarios debido a que no se han reconstruido. Una porción es para abatir el mojo, pero luego viene la reconstrucción. Next slide, please. Now, we have also a request for consultant services needed, and this is part of the findings that we have with the audit, the state report audit. The impact fees have not been updated since 2007. So that's one of the findings that we have, and we need to update those impact fees. We just throw a number in there, more or less, which is $100,000. We hope that we can do it without funding. The housing element, we're out of compliance on the housing element. And the city hired a consultant, and the consultant didn't comply with the housing element. It has been sent twice, letters to the state, information, and we're still out of compliance. We're gonna go after the insurance of the consultant if necessary, or ask him to complete the project, but for now, we need to get in compliance with the housing element regardless. And so we cannot even claim the funds that we receive from the state. We have a grant, the expenditures are there, the consultant was paid, but the product is not there. And so we have an issue with that, and I'm requesting $150,000, which is more or less the cost of the contract that we had before. But we're going to do our due diligence to do everything right and get it complete. Without a housing element, the city cannot even apply for grants. None of the grants for housing is available for us. Under the Housing Community Development for CDBG program, we need to be up to compliance. Even the housing authority, if they want to apply, they won't be able to apply because we're lacking that housing element. The cannabis ordinance needs to be reviewed, as well as to create a fast-tracking process for the cannabis portion and the housing element. I'm sorry, the last part is actually, it's not the housing element, it's the planning activities. Projects that have been stalled, and that we have a list of projects that have not been able to move because we lack capacity at the building, but we only have one planner. And the planner does a lot of the building, a lot of the TUPs portion, the projects, and it's impossible for one person to be able to handle those, so I'm requesting $50,000 for one, specifically for the cannabis portion, to update the ordinances and to do a fast-tracking process, and another one for all the projects. The last one is to be all the other projects, economic development projects or development projects as a whole. And so that will require $350,000. Lo que tenemos aquí es una lista de servicios de consultoría necesaria, número 1, para poder responder a la auditoría que tenemos con el Estado, en donde se nos indicó que parte de las tarifas para el desarrollo, para el impacto del desarrollo, no han sido actualizadas desde el 2007. Entonces tenemos que cumplir con ello y por eso estamos pidiendo esa cantidad. También lo que le llaman el elemento de vivienda no se ha actualizado, aun cuando tenemos un contrato con un consultor. Este consultor no cumplió y el Estado nos sigue mandando cartas de que estamos fuera no estamos cumpliendo como deberíamos de cumplir. No hemos procedido con ese proceso, y aparte de esto, no tener el elemento de vivienda activo y al día hace que nosotros no seamos elegibles para ninguna clase de subsidios para el gobierno. De nada nos sirve querer aplicar para fondos, porque nadie va a poder aplicar para nada que se relacione con vivienda porque no estamos actualizados. Así también, y me van a disculpar, la última, la número 4 de hecho es planeación. Las áreas de planeación y de cannabis necesitamos desarrollar un proceso para agilizar el proceso de aprobación en ambas áreas, tanto de planeación como proyectos de vivienda, proyectos de hoteles, proyectos de restaurante, de lo que sea. Necesitamos desarrollar un proceso que agilice el proceso y así poder obtener más beneficios para la ciudad, más ingresos. Para esto necesitamos alrededor de $350,000. Lo hacemos por un lado para poder crear más ingresos para la ciudad, pero también para cumplir con uno de los requisitos de la auditoría. La siguiente, por favor. Ahora bien, part of the city challenges are as the several facilities are in need of upgrades. But one of the things that I find out, and somebody might say every city has the same issues all over. Yes, some of the cities have this issue, but for me, knowing that the city is liable for $2 million for not creating an account to upfront those kind of liabilities is a huge issue for me. What this means is the following, and let me see if I can explain this. Simple. An employee has up to 2 years of accumulated vacation. So let's say that an employee can accumulate up to 200 hours a vacation, right? And from that moment and on, that employee is going to lose time if they don't take vacation, if it that or she and he doesn't take vacation. So what we have done at the city, and I say we for many years, maybe 6 years, from 6 years and till today, is that the city, instead of approving vacation to some of those employees because of the short time, and I'm talking about fire department and police department, what the city has done has created another account in which they allow those workers to continue accumulating vacation. But the city has failed to create a reserve to pay for those vacations when that person leaves. So we lost 2 firefighters and 1 police officer. By the time that we need to pay them off, we have to go and use general funds that we didn't have a schedule in our budget to pay the liabilities that we have. So the city right now owes $2 million, $1.7 million under the general fund, and $300,000 under the enterprise. So part of what we have done during this process of the audit, the quarterly report, is that we set aside $100,000 just to start accumulating minimum an amount over there, so that we can, in every quarter, we're gonna have to start injecting money, so that way we can have some reserve to pay off those liabilities that we have. In addition to that, the general fund, every time that I heard this, I almost laugh when I heard this. We have a balanced city budget. We never had one. A balanced city budget includes having all the personnel that you need to run a city. If you don't have 5 department heads, you're not running this facility. You're not running a balanced budget. You canceling all those positions just to barely make it to the budget. It's nobody's fault. We don't have the resources. But to call it balanced budget is the wrong term, because the only way that we were able to pass that budget is by not hiring an engineer that is most needed, and then we're going into the 4th or 5th year without an engineer. An economic development director, we don't have. Actually, the whole department is only 1 person left, which is an inspector. There's no one writing grants. There's no one chasing projects to bring more revenue to the city. We need an assistant. We need the part-times. We have part-time street workers and part-time workers for parks. 4 of them on part-time, not even full-time. But in addition to that, we hire approximately 37 temporary employees every month just to make it to pass by for the lack of employees that we have. So we don't have the capacity. We have numerous positions that are unfilled at the finance department. Do you know that we only have 1 person that does payroll? Now we're trying to train another person to payroll, to do the payroll. And I'm begging every single week that Ms. Fonseca doesn't get sick, because she's the one that prepares the payroll. But imagine if she gets ill, like a normal person. Who's going to prepare our payroll? So that just tells you how wrong, how bad our situation is. And then we need to build capacity. We don't have enough staff to upfront all the services that this city needs. People come and complain about not having the parks available to be operational. It's because we don't have the capacity. We don't have the workers because we don't have enough budget. According to the state audit, we somewhere in the $1.3 million off every year, every fiscal year. Aquí les voy a presentar algunos de los problemas que tenemos en la ciudad, algunos de los retos le voy a llamar. Como antes les había mencionado, tenemos varias facilidades que necesitan ser reparadas, pero también tenemos una responsabilidad que se ha creado a través de los años, alrededor de 6 años, en donde los trabajadores que acumulan sus vacaciones, llegan al tope de sus vacaciones y ya no pueden acumular más. Se les han creado una cuenta adicional para acumular esas más vacaciones, y esto sucede debido a que departamentos como el Departamento de Policía, el Departamento de Bomberos, no tienen suficiente personal y lo que hacen en vez de aprobarles vacaciones para que las usen, los dejan que sigan acumulando vacaciones en una cuenta separada. Sin embargo, la ciudad por muchos años no ha creado una reserva para afrontar los pagos hacia esos trabajadores cuando llega su tiempo de irse. Esto fue observado durante las últimas, tuvimos 2 bomberos y un policía que se fue de la ciudad a otro trabajo. Cuando un empleado se va de la ciudad, nosotros les tenemos la obligación de pagarle todo lo que tienen acumulados como vacaciones. Y ahí fue cuando nos estábamos dando cuenta que se iban con sus vacaciones que tenían acumuladas por 2 años de acuerdo a su contrato, pero también las vacaciones que tenían acumuladas en otra cuenta. Y esa otra cuenta no había una reserva para pagarles. Lo que quiere decir que ahorita la ciudad tiene una deuda de $2 millones y no tiene una reserva para pagar esa deuda. Lo que estamos haciendo nosotros en este momento con este reporte es empezar a crear una cuenta para empezar a acumular. Le vamos a poner $100,000 este periodo, y probablemente el siguiente periodo que tengamos dinero vamos a poder adherirle otros $100,000, de tal manera que cuando un empleado se separe de la ciudad, nosotros podamos tener dinero para poderle pagar. De otra manera, nos afecta directamente al General Fund, lo que es a los fondos generales de la ciudad. Dinero que no es proyectado en un presupuesto anualmente. Asimismo, la ciudad tiene se puede decir que un déficit de $1.3 millones. Aun cuando la ciudad ha mencionado muchas veces que su presupuesto está balanceado, la verdad es que nunca estuvo balanceado. Y la razón por la que nunca estuvo balanceado es porque solo se balancea si no se llenan las posiciones que se necesitan para operar eficientemente. Posiciones como ingenieros, desarrollo económico, que es lo que nos ayudan a traer negocios para que creen ingresos a la ciudad, un asistente para el city manager, trabajadores que han estado por 4 años trabajando medio tiempo y que ahora es necesario convertirlos en tiempo completo para que puedan mantener los parques. También, aun cuando no los pusimos ahí, también hay de parques, que en este proceso, en este reporte, 4 de los parques ya van a poder ser tiempo completo, que es parte de la propuesta que les traemos hoy. Pero todavía nos van a quedar 4 trabajadores de calles que tenemos que convertirlos en tiempo completo. Y hay muchas posiciones que no están llenas en la ciudad, que no existen, que no tenemos gente. Nomás para darles una idea, lo comentaba yo hace rato que la señora Fonseca es la única persona que hace la nómina. Si la señora Fonseca se enferma hoy, lo más probable es que no nos paguen la semana que viene. ¿Por qué? Porque ella es la única persona que se encarga y los 153 empleados de la ciudad no vamos a recibir pago. Eso nada más les da una idea a ustedes de las dificultades que esta ciudad tiene. Ahorita ella ya está capacitando a otra persona para que le ayude y para que en caso de que ella no esté en algún momento o tenga una emergencia o algo, alguien más la pueda ayudar. También necesitamos 2 trabajadores temporales para poder responder monitoring, el monitoreo de la Housing Community Development, de los grants que están pendientes desde 2014 que nunca se han resuelto. También estamos pidiendo que nos provean la posibilidad de contratar a esos trabajadores temporales y al mismo tiempo poder empezar a crear capacidad dentro del personal que tenemos para poder eficientemente operar la ciudad. Next slide, please. So this is the City Council request. In a nutshell, this is what we want for you to approve today. But there's some options for you to approve. I just want to spell it out so it's everything on one page. We're asking to move $2.196 million from the bond proceeds from the successor agency, move from 2nd Street project into Measure D funds to be able to pay the $1.8272 million that we owe to the fire station number 1 and to partially pay for $324,000 for fire station number 2. Fire station number 2, we're going to get additional funding from part of the other funding that we have on the proceeds, on the surplus. So that's part of the funding. We also requesting $1.464 million from the ARPA funds for repairs of several city facilities. That includes the library and 7 buildings and air conditioning and recarpeting and fixing equipment that we need. We also request, and our third request includes to use out of the $818,000 surplus funding, use $250,000 to be injected to the general capital fund, the reserve, to the reserve of the general fund. $100,000 to create an internal service fund that will pay for those obligations that we acquire. Out of the $2 million, we're going to start with $100,000, but at least as one step, the first step. And the rest of the funding is going to go to the local capital funds to expenditures for the fiscal year 2022-2023, which includes the police department, salaries for application process. So there's 2 things that I want to mention. One is just to process the projects that are pending, and the other consultant is going to be to create a fast-tracking process, 2 different things. And I just want to mention that that's the difference between one and the other one. And to convert 4 part-time parks workers into full-time for now. Lo que les mencionaba en este momento es de que el pedido que les hacemos al City Council el día de hoy es que nos permitan mover $2,196,000 de unos bonds, ¿cómo le llaman? Inversiones, como acciones de inversión, que son las que necesitan, que cuando la gente vota para que se acumule ese fondo, esa inversión. Y esto es de lo que era originalmente del Redevelopment Agency, Successor Agency, que teníamos antes cuando existían las agencias del Redevelopment Agency, eso fue creado en ese entonces. Lo que estamos haciendo es moverlo para el Measure D, para poder pagar, nada más son los proceeds, no son el dinero. La cuenta todavía va a tener dinero, se va a quedar con dinero para las reparaciones del Second Street, del puente. De ese dinero, $1.872 millones se va a utilizar para pagar lo que resta pendiente de la construcción de la estación número 1 y así podamos abrirla. Número 2 es para pagar $324,000 para la estación número 2, empezar a hacer reparaciones. También tenemos fondos de lo del General Fund que los pusimos a un lado. Se calcula que van a ser alrededor de $500,000 en total. Y también para que nos aprueben de los $818,000 de surplus que tenemos en este periodo que terminó en junio 30 del 2022, $250,000 para la reserva de General Fund del Fondo General, $100,000 para crear una cuenta para empezar a depositar dinero en la obligación de 2 millones que tenemos. Y la diferencia es para mandarlo a lo general, los fondos generales, para pagar la diferencia del oficial del jefe de policía, para traer las aplicaciones, el proceso de aplicaciones pendientes de cannabis y de planeación, así como para convertir a los 4 trabajadores de medio tiempo de los parques que se conviertan en tiempo completo. Next slide, please. Ahora bien, so this is, I'm sorry, it looks blurry, but can you read it? No? I think you have it in your presentation. You might be able to read it in your presentation. Oh my goodness, even worse. Yes, okay. So what I'm trying to do in this format is the following. And this is in your board package, in your staff report. It's the last page of the staff report. It's more visible on that one. But what it is the following. This is the balance that you have for ARPA money. Well, we asked to move the $1.464 million out of the downtown allocation. That's not necessarily what you need to approve. You have the opportunity now to let us know where can we pull the funds from. There are different categories. One of the accounts that is this emergency response is in red. It's overspent, $200,000. And the reason why is because a while ago, you approved an ambulance and it was paid from that account to order that ambulance. In addition to that, there are other payments that you have made from that account that leaves the account in red $200,000, and those are the most updated numbers. So technically, you have room to pull the funds, the $1.464 million. You can either use the following accounts. You can use the downtown rehabilitation, which has $2.9 million, the essential workers, $1 million, the outreach specialist, $138,000, and you have public facilities, IT upgrades, $1 million. City infrastructure, broadband infrastructure, $450,000, and the emergency park infrastructure improvements, $228. But remember, you have $200,000 off already in one of the accounts, which is the one for emergency response. In addition to that, remember that you didn't give direction to the staff. That's what I was told. I wasn't here. Of $200,000 being used for the fire station, there was in the first presentation, there was $200,000 on the ARPA, but it was never given direction for which account. So those are the numbers that you have. We just need direction from you to where to pull the funds so that we can put it in the resolution. Este es un listado de las actividades que todavía tienen fondos bajo lo que es conocido como el ARPA. Bajo estas cuentas existen diferentes fondos, pero mantengan en mente que la cuenta de Emergency Response, de respuesta de emergencia, está en números rojos, $219,000 creo. Está en rojo ya porque se excedió debido a que ordenaron una ambulancia. Además, existen $200,000 en la parte de abajo que se aprobaron para la estación de bomberos, que estaba en la primera página de la presentación, pero el personal no recibió dirección de dónde sacar el dinero, así que todavía tenemos que acomodar esos $200,000 en una de las cuentas de arriba. En total, la ciudad tiene disponibles a este momento $5,461,000 de ARPA, y de allí, pues ustedes nos tendrían que decir de qué cuentas quieren sacar el 1.464 millón.
¿Esta es la última slide de su presentación?
Two more slides. Ese es nomás para que lo mantengan en mente. Ahora bien, next slide. So how did what did I do this whole presentation? It's just to give an idea that technically we're off $5.3 million. $1.8 million from the fire station, $2 million from the unreserved, the obligations that we have, and $1.3 million on the general fund. So it's $5.2 million more or less. That's how behind we are in our budget. And so everybody thinks that we're making a lot of money, but we have a lot of obligations that we have accumulated throughout the years. El reporte que les acabo de presentar tiene la intención de dejarles saber a ustedes de la situación económica de la ciudad. Técnicamente la ciudad está en números rojos, $5.2 millones. Eso se resume a 1.8 millones de dólares para la estación de bomberos, es casi 1.9. 2 millones de las reservas que no se han creado y de las obligaciones que tenemos para pagar a los trabajadores sus vacaciones, obligaciones que no tenemos en la reserva, y 1.3 millones de dólares que no tenemos para poder contratar al personal para funcionar como una ciudad y ofrecer los servicios que debemos de proveer como ciudad. A grosso modo, son 5.2 millones de dólares. Ahora bien, how this all the requests that we're asking is going to facilitate the audit. So we addressed 6 items in the budget that were addressed by the report. There are more, but with this presentation and this movement of funds, you're going to help us to start identifying a response to the audit. The number 1 is to increase the general fund, which we're requesting $250,000 to be increased to the general fund, to create an additional revenue. If we hire consultants to expedite the services for development and cannabis projects, that will bring us more revenue in the future because we will get faster to the process. To maintain and operate existing facilities, we are converting 4 part-timers employees to a full-time. Part of the finding was that we are not having capacity to provide the services necessary for the community. Mismanagement of housing grants, we're hiring 2 temporary employees to assist with the pending monitoring issues from HCD. Calexico's outdated fees and rates maybe not fully cover the cost of certain services, so we're requesting to update the current development impact fees. And we're also making this presentation in Spanish so that we can comply because they were mentioning that the budget is presented only in English. So we're making an effort to present it in both languages, at least the budgets. Estas son algunas de las cosas que se encontraron, de los problemas que se encontraron en la auditoría de la ciudad de Calexico. Y el pedido que nosotros estamos haciendo ahora al concilio para que nos aprueben podría ayudarnos a empezar a remediar al menos 6 de los problemas que fueron encontrados durante el monitoreo del estado de California. El primero es incrementar los fondos de la reserva en $250,000. El segundo es generar ingresos. Y eso nada más lo podemos hacer trayendo capacidad de consultores que nos puedan ayudar a procesar esos proyectos que están pendientes, que no se han movido y que por ende no producen ningunos ingresos para la ciudad. Así también tendríamos que mantener las facilidades que tenemos en los parques específicamente. Nos ayudaría para poder proveer mejores servicios en los parques, convertir esos 4 trabajadores empleados de medio tiempo a tiempo completo. Y tenemos también otro de los problemas que nos encontraron durante el monitoreo es que no habíamos respondido a la auditoría, al monitoreo del Departamento de Vivienda, y para eso queremos contratar 2 trabajadores temporales, y los menciono temporales, para poder ayudarnos a responder a ese monitoreo y así poder tener acceso a dinero y a otros grants, a otros subsidios. Así también tenemos que la ciudad, este fue el finding, este fue lo que nos mencionaron, que las tarifas que se cargan a los proyectos de desarrollo no han sido actualizados desde el 2007. Y entonces nosotros lo que estamos proponiendo es poder actualizar esas tarifas, porque ya tenemos que 15 años sin actualizarlos, y así poder responder. Y esta presentación el día de hoy se ha hecho bilingüe para poder cumplir con uno de los comentarios que hicieron durante la autoría también. Así que, next slide. Ahora bien, esta la saqué el día de hoy de la página. Es del Departamento de Auditoría del Estado de California. Calexico es el número 2 dentro del rango de las ciudades que están en alto riesgo. Y es por eso que el día de hoy les hacemos esta presentación para poder obtener su aprobación, para que nos den dirección de cómo podemos hacerlo. Nosotros les estamos presentando opciones, ustedes van a decidir de dónde sacamos el dinero para poder hacerlo.
Muchas gracias, señora Collier. We do have 2 speakers from the audience before we deliberate as a city council. Mr. Peroni, you had a petition for comment on the finances.
Honorable Mayor and City Council, it's really disappointing to see those numbers, very disappointing. And I tell you, de frente, like we would say, this is mismanagement coming from your city manager, and not you, because you just recently got here, but this is city manager and financing. Because a good manager has good contact with their Department of Finances. They monitor their monies coming in and going out weekly or monthly. How did this happen that we came to this situation? Very disappointing. Instead of spending so much money on consultants, I would be spending money on somebody helping me monitor the money that comes in and how it's going to be spent. So we're having trouble in our expenses and our income. So don't spend so much money on consultants. She needs help, and your director of finances needs help. It's disappointing to hear one person doing payroll for 167 people. That's incredible. Back when I was in city council, we had 400 employees. Now we have 167, and our budget was 14 million. Yes, there have been changes in the economy, but definitely we're doing something wrong. We really have to check our expenses, monitor them. And, Mr. Ureña, you have a lot of talent. You studied economics, so did Mr. Romo. Let's put those to work. Let's monitor. Something that also a little disappointed, in our last meeting we had with the bid, I requested ARPA funds. I hope that they're included, because really the bid is putting in almost all our budget to fix all the downtown lighting and to enhance it. And it's really a city project, but we're doing it for safety, to better our downtown, and I hope we get your support on that. So we need help in your city manager's office. She probably needs an assistant. And in your finance, you need to monitor your monies and where they're going, and checking it every week, every month, not waiting so long. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Peroni. The second speaker, Ms. Flores.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is council members, Mayor Pro Tem Ureña and Mayor. I'm speaking here as a Calexico stakeholder, not from the organization that I advocate from usually. So I'm here to, just share some thoughts about what was just presented. It's been difficult to start to understand the level of corruption that has been taking place for the last decade or so, probably more, but the audit has been highlighting some of the poor decisions of past council members, some of which are running for re-election right now, and some that are sitting here at the moment. I want to first off start on a positive note before I really go there, and just thank City Manager Esperanza Collio for her efforts to bring transparency to the members of the city and to everyone here today, and also beginning to address the injustice of not speaking the language in which 96% of the residents here understand. So I thank you for bringing this effort. I feel that if more of the community was here today, they would definitely be able to understand the detail that was discussed, even though the numbers are quite burdensome. I think the way you broke it down really helped us understand. Definitely just want to thank you for that. And I do hope that, that continues. For the future, just as we heard from a previous presentation that we are looking ahead at putting together the budget in March for the 23-24 year. And I just want to provide an initial recommendation that this effort is one that is participatory. I think all of us here, if we're paying attention to what's happening around the state, we would know that participatory budgeting is actually a tool that we can do, that we can use, a process we can engage in to really ensure that community is not only informed of the financial decisions that are taking place, but that they're also able to provide some input based on their lived experience, and also be able to, you know, understand these decisions. Because from what it looks like here today, none of this was discussed at the level that it needed to be discussed with the members of the community. And so now 10 years later, we're learning about the poor leadership and the clear corruption that has taken place. And I'm disgusted that some of those same people are in the ballot for tomorrow.
Ms. Flores, that does conclude your 3 minutes.
That does conclude it. There's so many thoughts, and I just want to say, like, we definitely need these participatory budgeting opportunities so that as members of this community, we're able to fully express what a person that is taking in all this information, all the thoughts that we might have about not only the examples of what's being discussed, but also the direction, at least as, you know, stakeholders of this community. So I thank you for your time. I had a long page of thoughts, and I will come back to continue sharing those and hope for a better Calexico. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Flores. Next speaker is Ms. Blanca Morales.
Thank you, Pro Mayor Temp and City Council. Sitting here listening and also reviewing a lot of your reports that have happened in the past, it's clearly that with your new city manager, we now have a clear picture of what's going on. Of course, it is pretty bad news, but you know, obviously, you know, your city employees have been, you guys have been short-staffed. There's been lack of training, lack of tools. And not evolving with technology is not a good thing, and I think we've waited a very, very long time. No oversight, and but the good news is that we now have a really true picture of what's going on, right, with the city budget. Numbers don't lie, okay? So I think that in the future, whether I'm here or someone else is here, is please learn from this report and always have check and balances, okay? You have to have check and balances and validate. You know, you can always trust, but validate, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Final speaker, Mr. Manzanares.
Buenas tardes, Gilberto Manzanares. Primero que nada, muchísimas gracias, señorita Esperanza, por hacer la presentación en español también. Como sabrá, tenemos muchos ciudadanos aquí que, pues, lamentablemente todavía no aprenden el lenguaje de inglés, ¿verdad? Exactamente hace 13 meses, en octubre del año pasado, empezamos a recibir los fondos de ARPA. Inmediatamente, sin siquiera hacer citas con la comunidad, yo me considero un ciudadano informado, ¿verdad? Aquí me han visto ya por un bastante tiempo, y aún así ni siquiera nos preguntaron, no hicieron citas sobre los primeros $600,000 que se gastaron en vehículos, nada más, ¿verdad? Ustedes sabrán, ustedes votaron por eso. $678,000 en vehículos en octubre, hace un año. Un mes después, también se gastaron otra vez $1 millón en cheques para los empleados de la ciudad. Ahí ya van casi $2 millones que les dije hace un año, les dije, nos vamos a arrepentir y luego vamos a desear que tuviéramos ese dinero hoy mismo. Con ese dinero ya se hubiera pagado casi la estación de bomberos, que ahora no se puede ni terminar, ¿verdad? Y les dije, pero pues decepcionado, la verdad, por la falta de comunicación del concilio en ese entonces con la comunidad. Como les dije, nosotros, mis compañeros aquí y yo, aquí hemos estado y ni siquiera tuvimos chance de decir una palabra antes de que se gastaran casi $700,000 de esos fondos. Así que le pido a la gente que, como dice mi compañera Daniela, que hay gente que le está pidiendo su voto, que tuvo mano en esta tragedia que ahora se está mirando. Entonces, por favor, consideren bien su voto mañana. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, señor Manzanares. Any other comments from the public, online, in person? Ms. Belinda Alvarado.
Le quiero dar gracias a la señora Colio porque no nomás es algo que nos está trayendo y está siendo transparente a la comunidad, pero lo que está haciendo nos está diciendo los problemas que tiene la ciudad, que tenemos, ¿verdad? Porque esa es nuestra comunidad, pero también ofreció soluciones. Ofreció soluciones, muchos de los temas que tocó, por ejemplo, en Economic Development yo trabajé por 3 años como intern y yo usé a 5 interns de Public Administration de San Diego State para terminar el monitoring, para hacer update el HCD y recibimos, la ciudad recibió 970,000 de un Cal Grant B, me parece, señora Colio, que se regresó. ¿Por qué? Porque se tenía que hacer. Cuando yo dejé la ciudad, había 2 personas que estaban allí. Ahora que dice ella de monitoring y todo, nomás le hago así porque es increíble que las personas que se quedaron allí, que no hayan hecho nada. Aparte de eso, yo hice un management plan para evitar lo que está diciendo la señora Colio de HCD, CDBG. O sea, es imposible que se haya regresado, se hayan tomado pasos traseros, porque las que están encargadas ahí tienen la habilidad de hacer. Si yo en mi casa puedo hacer mi casa, lavar, atender a 5 personas, a mi esposo, o sea, es lo mismo que se tiene que hacer. Aparte soy self-employed, lo puedo hacer y hago muy buen dinero en eso. O sea, le quiero dar gracias a la señora Colio por ser transparente, porque es lo que hacemos en los bonos del Measure V y en el Measure Q en la ciudad, en el School District. La School District es bien, está más disciplinada que nosotros. Ahora, una pregunta que le hago a la señora Colio a ustedes, ¿cómo evitamos de que esto nos vuelva a suceder? Porque es mucho dinero. Ella ofrece soluciones que ojalá que ustedes que puedan elegir. O sea, tenemos a un abogado y siempre lo hemos tenido. ¿Cómo llegamos hasta aquí? ¿Cómo no volvemos a estar aquí? Eso es lo que yo sentada allí estoy pensando. Yo sé cómo trabaja Sally, yo sé cómo trabajan todos los de aquí, que tienen funciones bien fuertes, pero también les tienen que exigir que hagan, y están haciendo mucho con lo poco que le estamos dando. Entonces, ese es mi comentario, que si estando allí digo, no puede ser posible. No puede ser posible que no se haya traído todas las cosas que se van a gastar al concilio. Que alguien allá adentro, ¿quién es yo quiero saber quién es el que firmó los cheques? Que ya sé quién, pero ¿cómo se hace? O sea, como dice la señorita, it's highway robbery. This has to stop. Yo quisiera que sí lo hicieran, pero también hicieran una resolution, un draft, algo, para que no se vuelvan a repetir estas cosas.
Gracias, señora Alvarado. Comenzando ahí la discusión, señor Colio, parece que iba a decir algo sobre esa pregunta que tiene la comunidad en mente.
Una de las recomendaciones que voy a traer en el futuro es los libros se tienen que auditar a cada año para saber que se han hecho correctamente. No se han estado haciendo y lo necesitamos empezar a hacer. Ahora bien, también quiero decir que el concilio reaccionó con lo que se le proveyó de información. Realmente cae en la responsabilidad de uno. ¿Ustedes han visto que yo he aprobado un change order del Fire Station? No, ninguno. Tengo 4 meses y no los he aprobado, porque quería ver en dónde estábamos y no los puedo aprobar, porque cuando empiezo a revisar los números no me dan. Entonces, ese es uno de los problemas principales. Yo no puedo acusar a nadie en específico. No estoy aquí para acusar a nadie, estoy aquí para resolver un problema. I don't know what the roots of the problem were. I'm recommending to do an annual audit to our books to prevent this kind of issues. I'm not here to accuse one or another person, the concilio or the council members or the city managers or the finance director. I'm not here to accuse anyone. I don't really care. What I really care is to put a solution on it. We need to find a solution because we cannot continue with this path. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Colio. Reacciones, reactions, I'll start on my right side this time. Señora Romo, ¿gustaría entonar la conversación?
Una pregunta, señora Colio. Cuando usted entró aquí como administradora de la ciudad de Calexico, como debe de ser, usted recibió un estado financiero de la ciudad por parte del señor Figueroa, ¿sí o no?
El señor Figueroa no estaba aquí, estaba el chief.
Quien sea.
Pero no.
Quien haya dejado la administración fue el señor Figueroa, ya no estaba tampoco la directora de finanzas, entonces estaba la señora Fonseca. ¿No?
Ella fue la que
Usted le dio a la señora Colio un estado financiero correctamente como se le debió de haber entregado, ¿sí o no? Bueno, ese estado financiero lo voy a ocupar, muy importante para mí. Hay muchas cosas que no se nos informaron, que no se nos dieron, y es una responsabilidad muy grande de un concilio, cualquiera que éste sea, cuando no se tiene la información o cuando se desconoce, sobre todo asuntos presupuestarios y financieros. Muy delicado. Así ha pasado 100 años en la ciudad. Y tenemos problemas muy graves desde el 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008, 2009 y hasta acá. ¿Por qué? Porque hay auditoría tras auditoría tras auditoría y no completamos las auditorías y seguimos pagando. Algo que quiero decir que estoy bastante molesta y lo digo en serio. Tenemos contratados, con todo respeto, señora Colio, a una señora por años que en la calle me la pasan diciendo ¿por qué seguimos contratando a una señora que viene a darnos a nosotros asesoría financiera? Se llama Susan Mayer, ¿estoy bien? Discúlpenme porque yo tengo que decir las cosas. Yo estoy aquí para trabajar. Y yo tengo muchos años en presupuesto, tengo muchos años trabajando esto. Y yo les voy a decir a ustedes una cosa. Yo no sé quién es la señora, no la conozco. Tiene muchos años y le han pagado una cantidad de dinero. Entonces, si yo veo todo este relajo, por no decirlo de otra manera, entonces, ¿qué asesoría nos están dando? ¿Y saben qué? Yo también quiero, señora Fonseca, que me diga usted desde cuándo la tenemos contratada y cuánto dinero le hemos pagado. Porque sí lo quiero saber. Porque es dinero del pueblo. Y si a mí me dicen que estos problemas están aquí, no se han resuelto, y seguimos teniendo problemas, entonces ¿para qué tenemos contratado a una persona de esa naturaleza? ¿Qué le está diciendo a usted? ¿En qué le ha asesorado usted? Ahora me están diciendo que encontraron un dinero, 2.467.000 de una agencia, creo que de desarrollo económico, aquí lo estoy mirando, en la página 24, para quien lo quiera ver. Digo, por Dios, o sea, que me digan a mí ahorita, señora Romo, y no es la primera vez que me dicen, señora Fonseca, encontramos un dinero que no sabíamos que estaba ahí. O sea, ¿de veras? ¿Es tan difícil un presupuesto de una ciudad como para no saber por años que no hay un dinero ahí? ¿De veras? ¿Saben qué? Lo siento mucho, pero yo no voy a autorizar absolutamente nada hasta que a mí no me entreguen lo que yo necesito para estudiar. Esto es una responsabilidad bastante grande. Entonces, Nada de lo que esté aquí, con mucho respeto y apoyo al 100 a la señora Colio, y no es en contra de ella. Yo necesito estudiar esto. Esto que se está presentando aquí, y claro, lo vamos a resolver inmediatamente, pero también necesito información atrás para yo poder hacer mis números, mis cálculos, porque así no puedo. No tenemos un director de finanzas. La anterior directora de finanzas, ¿dónde está ahora? ¿Por qué no se nos dijo a nosotros por qué motivo salió la señora directora anterior de aquí? O sea, por favor, o sea, ¿de qué se trata esto? ¿Estamos cubriéndonos o qué? Ahora, tenemos una auditoría de riesgo, señores. Esta no es una auditoría, estas no son caricaturas. Una auditoría de riesgo es cuando una ciudad está por irse a la quiebra. Claro, hace milagros la señora Colio con esto y claro, lo que nos está diciendo aquí, por supuesto que estoy de acuerdo, pero necesito saber más. Siento sinceramente, y lo digo por toda la gente que está atrás de mí, de esta ciudad, que no se me ha informado al 100% cómo está esto, cómo está realmente las finanzas. Con todo respeto, señora Fonseca, usted está ahorita interinamente, pero necesitamos gente, con todo respeto lo digo, directoras de finanzas que tengan mucha experiencia en el área financiera pública. No digo que usted no la tenga, señora, lo que pasa es que usted no tenía ese puesto, lo tenía otra señora, y esa señora no está aquí, el administrador anterior no está aquí, ¿cómo es posible que se nos haya mal informado de este dinero que existía? Resulta que existía y nunca se nos informó. En conclusión, Protem y mis compañeros, yo necesito estudiar esto más a fondo, sinceramente. No puedo tomar una decisión como debe de ser porque me siento muy comprometida con la gente. La gente tiene que saber en su idioma, como dijo la auditoría, como lo he dicho, nos han tenido que venir a decir los auditores que necesitamos comunicarnos en español, caray. Porque el 96, hagan de cuenta que esa sencilla cosa que todo el mundo sabemos, nos la dieron y nos la restregaron aquí en la cara. Y así está todo esto. Entonces, con todo respeto, aquí hay muchos concilios anteriores a este y mucha gente que ha estado aquí. Y sáquenle cuentas, no vamos a decir nombres. Aparte del señor Miguel Figueroa, estuvo el señor David Dell. Entonces yo veo que todo el mundo se va de aquí fascinado de la vida, se va a otro trabajo, y ya la ciudad de Calexico, que se vaya al carajo. ¿Qué pasó aquí, pues? Lo siento mucho. Tengo que escuchar a los auditores, los tengo que escuchar a ustedes. Pero yo tengo atrás a mucha gente que habla español igual que yo y que quiere entender qué está pasando y me lo está exigiendo. Así es de que con mucho respeto, en esta ocasión me abstengo a cualquier voto que pueda dar, no voy a dar ningún voto. Hasta que no se me presenten a mí todos los números para revisarlos y estudiarlos y saber qué decisión yo voy a tomar en este asunto. Lo siento mucho, pero así está. Gracias.
Muy bien. Señora Fernández, adelante.
Well, like Ms. Carter said, we can't put fingers. This goes back to 2011. And, you know, it's unfortunate that the council was in the blind. You know, how many times didn't we have meetings, we talked about the budget, and we went over, and then to see even change orders that were not even brought up to the city council. And, you know, everybody could point finger at us and say that we were not doing our job, but unfortunately, I think what happened was that we were just not informed, because our meetings, and we're all witnesses, how many times didn't we go in closed session, in different meetings, and they were telling us everything was fine? The numbers, look at the numbers. So how could anybody come back and blame us? I'm sorry, but, you know, this is something that needs to be fixed, and we need to use the ARPA money, and your recommendation, I'm for it, because this is something that needs to be fixed right away, and we cannot wait for it. I mean, I don't know how long it's gonna take, like Mr. Ramos says, to look at everything. What is it gonna do? The harvest already done.
And if I may, I would like to explain something that I forgot to mention. It is crucial for us that at least the fire station gets completed because we're going to get sued. This city is a self-insured city, and any lawsuit comes from the general fund. And so in addition to that, we have our fire engines outside of the parking area. Last week, you put it inside of the parking lot, right? We have that facility finished, but we can't get into it. The firefighters cannot get into it because we have to complete that project.
Señora Colio, nomás para poder traducirle un poquito de lo que está diciendo. Usted está diciendo que podemos, o usted recomienda mínimo aprobar el movimiento que no tiene nada que ver con ARPA de la estación de bomberos número 1, porque nos pueden venir a demandar si esos fondos no están en esa cuenta. Podemos aprobarlo en partes. Obviamente de aquí lo más controversial es cualquier movimiento de ARPA, que en este momento yo tampoco toco porque pues sí, tenemos que ver un poquito más las proyecciones y las posibilidades y regresar a esto y con la comunidad. Entonces, nomás para que eso quede claro. Señor García.
Thank you. Many times we ask, and I asked personally about change orders. That was something that I really, took offense to that. And I say offense because that's what that is now. It was not accurate. Many times, I didn't approve, the change orders. I was the long dissenting vote on many change orders because, I just felt that it wasn't really being provided with entire information. In addition to that, I think before we can make any decision, or at least me, I want to have a clear plan now moving forward. I don't think consultants are going to continue to be the answer or shouldn't be the answer. We need to stay away from that. We need to make sure that we hire people, again, who are experts in the subject matter, because if not, we're going to continue to fall on the same exact, issue that we're having now. So consultants is not something that I would look into. And I understand you're looking for help now. And you're looking for capacity now also. But moving forward, I would like to make sure that, we have, talent that can stay here, that will stay here. Then also what I would like to see is that we can look at, you can mention fees, and that is true. We have been asking for a study on fees. But then also from attending, a lot of meetings for the Planning Commission, a lot of times it also has to do in projects that do not have all the documentation. So it's not entirely on fees. All the process has to be fixed. So on that. And then also, I did mention, a few months ago, our legal expenses. Our legal expenses are through the roof, 800,000, if not more, this past fiscal year. So there's a lot of opportunity to look into what we're spending, to look into how we're spending. So I think all of that has to be the plan that we have to be presented, that we have to study, that we have to have the backup, that we have to see, the funds where these are going to come from. I don't want to continue to make decisions on projections, and I know that that's also part of the budgeting process. But I want to see real numbers. And if you go back to the tapes, that was one of my comments. I said, these are just projections. I want to deal with real numbers, and we're coming back to that. So I want a plan, a sustainable plan, a plan with people who are going to be here, who are going to grow with the city, who are going to stay with the city. A lot of times I have said also about continuity, about a plan that will have sustainability. And, we just have move on. Many times, now going back to the fire station, how many times did I ask, do we have the money? Are we going to be able to, and I know, you're making a face, and then it wasn't you. I mean, the 365 day, the change orders, the contingency monies, always fighting for every single penny. So, and again, we have a project manager. Where is the project manager on all of this also? So, going back again to what I have asked, that every time that we fall short, the city is on the hook, for covering or paying for, the monies that are short. We never go back to these people that we hire as consultants. Where's the liability? So if we need to spend money on legal, that I have asked also, because every time there's a change, it's the city. It's the city that, is always paying for that change. And I have never gotten a straight answer when I asked, can we go back and negotiate? Can we go back and look at the contracts, the way that we're procuring also? And we just keep moving forward. So it's about time that, again, we hold ourselves accountable, and this has to stop. And again, I'm not going to approve any of these changes. I know we need to move forward with this, but I want to see a part of what I ask. So maybe we can come back in a few weeks, have a clear timeline as to how much do we have, how much time do we have before we start incurring any legal challenges, because I don't want to pay legal fees either. That will add up to the cost. So come back with a clear timeline. And I know you already offer, some suggestions as to how to mitigate this or address this financial issues that we have. But also, just come back with those timelines.
Yes, just one quick comment. Miss, our HR department, she left, right? Sorry. Just so you know, we had somewhere in the 20 positions open. We have done recruitment, and we can get people to work. Planners are the most difficult field to get on board with the city. We have to compete with a number of cities. Even the county of Imperial are short in planners. That's what we need, planners. Why planners? Specifically because none of the projects, no one wants to come to the city to apply because they know it's going to take 2 years for them to move a project, because we only have one planner. One planner that most of the time is doing site inspections and all of the other stuff that she's doing. We have a number of TUPs. There's only one planner. We need consultants because there's no other way that we can get out of this. Some of the issues that I have on the cannabis files and on the projects, I need someone that is an expert in the area. And we're gonna make it competitive. And I know that we have worked before with planners that will do the work. We need to develop a fast tracking process. We don't have a fast tracking process. When you come as a developer, you come with one planner. But there's no meetings in which all of the departments comes together and tell that developer, this is what you need from my department for water, from fire department, for police department. It's not established. We need to create something. We don't have that one. If we don't do that, we're gonna sink. We're never gonna progress and create revenues for the city because no projects are being approved. There are people, a number of people in my 4 months, I have at least 7 developers complaining about the slow process in the city. It's the problem that we have, and we will continue having it. And we can open planning positions, planners. But I bet you we're not gonna get anything. We can get an assistant for the accounting, right? They rejected they apply, and when they thought that they will get the highest pay, and when we usually offer the lowest pay to start so they can go by steps, they rejected the positions because we're the lowest pay. And so that's my concern about having consultants, because I don't see any other way to start moving really quick and to develop the processes that we need to develop, because there's no processes in the city. The TUPs are the perfect example. And this is something that I was refraining myself to say, but I'm gonna say it this time. This TUP waivers needs to stop. There's no TUP waivers. There's no services that are gonna be waived because this city, every time that we have an event, Firefighters have to go, police department has to send 4 cops, and all the other one. And yes, they're nonprofit organizations. I feel for them. My heart is with nonprofit organizations because they help us a lot. But they also have funds. Why are we waiving the fee is fine, but waiving the services that our staff is paying for is not fair. Putting barricades on a Saturday. Public Works has to come over there, pay overtime to their employees so they can go over there to put the barricades, and we want to waive those fees. It's not fair. The bleeding needs to stop at the city. And we're not going to be able to stop it until everybody gets together and really trust me as a city manager to stop the bleeding, to not waive fees. Everybody has to pay. Because we're never going to get out of the hole. So I understand your concerns. I get it. I wasn't here for all the change orders. I had the tendency to look into the numbers, and Ms. Fonseca can tell you that her staff is just laughing because every time that they bring me an invoice, I'm checking the invoice and I'm checking if we have the funding available. Otherwise, I don't process a payment. I hold the payment because we don't have the money to pay for it. So I just want to let you know that I'm here. My background is in finance. So that's what I'm so particularly interested in the finances, because a city cannot operate in red.
Thank you, Ms. Colio. I'll go ahead and begin my comments. I was coming into this meeting with at least, some confidence and some optimism, and I can pinpoint exactly what was the change in information that popped that confidence. And that one is quite simply that I thought the $1 million in the ambulance was paid for at the beginning with the car package, and it seems like that was not the case, that we're now in red in that emergency services category. That changes everything, number one, which leads to previous decisions to give an excessive employee bonus at a time that we did not have the money to make it. I mean, just sin rencor se tiene que decir que fue una decisión muy mala, tanto empezar a gastar en carros de policía y el bono que se dio casi el doble a otras ciudades a nuestros empleados. No teníamos el dinero para hacer eso y ahora las estamos llorando y vamos a ver de dónde vamos a cortar. There's a sprinkle of good news hidden in here that needs to be highlighted, and that is the general fund surplus. This is the first time when we actually get a detailed understanding or a detailed presentation of where that general fund surplus comes from. Previously, we would just get, if you look at the item number 1 on your agenda, we would just get the last page with the numbers. Here you go, you have $619,000, let me know what you want to do with it. Now, you have $819,000, 219, and this is our actual figures from this quarter, 219 are actual increases in revenue. And then, for the first time ever, I'm seeing them in a report that it's broken down. 46,000 from increases in property tax, 60,000 from sales tax, and down the list. And then we can go even further to see what lead agency and start to develop an economic strategy. We didn't have that kind of information. As you can see, most of our quote-unquote surplus in this quarter, 600,000, is just from positions that we are not filled. And that is, and I'm in agreement, that is miscategorized, not categorized correctly as a surplus. Those are just simply people that we need that we don't have. The good news, at least there, at least in my opinion, was you had proposed to move 500,000 of those dollars into the general fund reserve. How far are we from making the reserve? Are we still around $2 million away, 1.5 million? Before the transfer.
Okay. Before the transfer, we were at 1.8 something, that we're going to be now down to 250,000, right? If I'm not mistaken.
2.2 million.
But the idea, and knowing the risk that we have, and knowing that we have $2 million in debt, my recommendation will be $4 million in reserve. I'm not saying we're going to do it today or tomorrow. We can start doing little by little. Spend $1 over here, save another $1 over here. That's the way that we need to do.
You lost me just a little bit. So right now we have how much in the reserve?
What?
Around $2 million?
Close to $2 million, but not $2 million.
No, not 2 million. 1.8.
If you don't approve this today that was presented to you, we have less than $2 million.
Oh, of course. From this point, without approving anything, we are about 2 million away to get to that 4 million,
Yes.
correct? That is to me the piece of good news because that's manageable. If we put in $500,000 for the next 4 quarters consecutively, we will get there.
Technically, you only have $500,000 reserved. Because if I will have to operate the city the way that it's supposed to be operating, having the staff working as the way it's supposed to be, with $500 in reserves.
Okay.
You see, it's $1.3 million or something, so that's the way it is.
And with that fund, that $2 million liability with the vacation hours, it's kind of like a game of borrowing that we've been doing wrong because it sounds like the strategy from previous administration is to cut down to the bone. But when you cut down to the bone, it creates a bigger liability in vacation hours. So te va a costar de una manera.
One way or the
otra.
other, it has a cost. Having people working overtime, it has a cost. Having people accumulate an additional vacation has a cost. It's liability for the city.
And it's an even greater liability to have tired firefighters, tired police officers,
Yes.
tired administrative and financial
Yes.
directors. All of those things are.
The enterprise is in the same boat.
See?
The enterprise is $300,000 in regret for lack of reserve as well.
So,
So why? Because we only have so many operators. We've been hiring operators for a while and nobody's responding to the requests, to the positions. Like I said before, we had 20 positions open and we can fill those positions. No one wants to come. Because our salaries are not that high, they go somewhere else. And honestly, the way that we look right now with the audit, it's not an inviting thing for someone to come.
so, okay. I wanted to make that part clear to the community. And then lastly, on the fire station itself, I mean, I do have to say, and to differentiate the two problems with fire station number 1, obviously change orders were a problem in the way that they were presented and the way that they were sold to the community. The change orders totaled somewhere over $600,000, almost reaching $700,000. But the initial deficit, which was money that was counted towards the project, but we didn't really have control over, the project income was more than $1 million, right?
The program income, if I'm not mistaken, it was $1.2 million. Yes, it was mentioned in one of the meetings, maybe several of the meetings. I don't know. I haven't reviewed all the meetings, but it would say that, and that's what I said. I'm not going to point our fingers to the city council at that time because they only knew what it was provided by the city manager at that time, that you have this money approved by the state, which it was never approved by the state. So
That makes sense. I think finally to help us make a better decision as to what is the bare bones that needs to get approved here to avoid legal liability so we can continue this conversation.
One thing that I want to clarify,
Sí.
if you read in your report, it's mentioned that we are only asking for the reallocation of the funds, but we're not asking for approval of the change orders. I want to clarify that. So there are a total of 7 change orders. The last, I believe there's only 4 change orders approved by city council and the other 3 are pending. So what is going to happen is, even if today you reallocate the funds to make it available, we had to come back to you with all the change orders and all the explanation of the whole process. How did that happen? Amendments to contracts, to the engineering contract that went from $580,000 to $1 million. The change orders on the project, all of that has to come to the city council for final approval. Okay. You're not approving the change orders today with this request. I'm just asking to reallocate funds so that we can have them available for infrastructure improvements that we need for the facilities.
Understood. Camilo's question was, if we table this today, do we risk legal action from here to next Wednesday, from here to early December? Or are we safe to just table it and come
We
back to
can,
approve
we
it?
can come back next Wednesday
Uh-huh.
with a full presentation for the change orders and everything for you to approve it or disapprove. Whatever we want to need, we have a special meeting tomorrow with the consultant, the construction manager as well. So for us to come back with the change orders and everything, and we can bring both items. This item that is tabled today, you can have this item after you review the change orders and approve or disapprove, whatever you want to disapprove or approve. I think we're still safe at that time.
Okay. I think that's,
Is that gonna be a regular meeting next week?
Yes.
I-
So we're expecting to have a long meeting because we're going to go for a full detail, a full explanation of that project, that particular project.
So with the change orders, they've already been done?
Yes.
they've been done but not approved by council. It's in-
Well, one of them was done in 2021 and was never approved. It just appeared. So we will bring all the documents for you to have the full package so you can have every detail.
Okay. With that, I'll submit to the council a motion to table this item until the next regular meeting.
Right.
Before we vote, lo que se dijo de el intercambio entre las horas acumuladas de vacación y los actuales niveles de staffing que tenemos, que por favor de cierta forma se clarifica al público. Me imagino que se va a clarificar en la próxima junta cuando toquemos otra vez el tema.
Mhm.
¿Sí? Is there a second?
Don't they normally buy them out at the end of the year?
No. I have employees with 300 and 400 hours accumulated and additional hours on a second account. That's a huge liability for a city. And a lot of people can say that a lot of cities have the same issue. I don't really care about the other cities. I care for what I city that I'm responsible for. And that's my responsibility to tell you what is the situation, because one day, God forbid, one day all of us decide to go at the same time, then you're going to have a hard time to pay us off, all of us. That's a liability.
Sin decir, yo me quedé sin expresar mi agradecimiento. Obviamente es una conversación que ya hemos tenido de tener hace muchos meses, hace muchos años. Le agradecemos por llevarnos a este punto que estamos ahorita de claridad mínimo para saber cómo estamos verdaderamente aquí en la ciudad de Calexico. And with that, I'll make a motion to table this item into the next meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second by Ms. Romo. Roll call vote, Ms. Garcia.
Mayor Pro Tem Ureña,
Yes.
Councilmember Romo,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia,
Yes.
Councilmember Arriola Fernandez, Mayor Moreno, Councilmember Romo,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia, Councilmember Arriola Fernandez, Mayor Moreno, Councilmember Romo,
Yes.
Councilmember Garcia, Councilmember Arriola Fernandez, Mayor Moreno.
You can ask him. She can ask him because of...
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
We need your vote on the motion made.
Hello, can you hear me? My vote is yes.
We need your vote on Thank you, sir. Motion.
Motion passes 5-0 to table this item into the next regular meeting. Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ms. Romo. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Garcia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This meeting is adjourned at 8:21 p.m. Thank you.